All right. Well, such great information has been passed on there from the previous lessons. I thought we can just have take a bit of time here, a bit of breather, and just run through some questions possibly that people might have with regards to when it comes to sleep and stress. I think primarily most of the questions that we have here are coming from the sleep aspect.
Hmm.
So let me just, without further ado, run them through and see what you have to say. All right. One of the questions is, um, with when you speak of lack of sleep, are you primarily speaking about the amount of hours that you're sleeping, or does it
Yeah.
also fall into the fact of like when are you sleeping? You know, like you get the sleeping cycle and all that. Does that also
Yeah.
play a part in this regard?
Well, I mean, the sleep cycles definitely do play a part. But I would say when you say lack of sleep, it's really predominantly referring to a volume issue. You're probably not getting enough sleep. Because if you at least get a high volume of sleep, you know, you have a lot more chances at having a more complete sleep cycles.
Okay. What about people that work shifts? What's the best way then for them to manage this?
Find a new job at some point. Yeah, I mean, I'm kidding. I mean, only half kidding, I guess. But the reality is, look, like shift work messes with your sleep cycles and your circadian rhythm really, really terribly. So the only way to manage this is just to make sure that you have a plan to transition between the shifts. So it really depends on the nature of your shift work. And I speak of this like from experience working with people that are doing, let's say, medical shifts where they know in advance what their roster is like, so they can plan such that they know, okay, this day before I get my go into my like night shifts, I can reorganize and like prepare my body for that. So you might switch your sleep cycle slowly over the 2 days prior, for example, and then once you get off the shift itself, then you might figure out, okay, what's your time frame of how you're going to sleep so that you can try to quickly get back into that sleep at night cycle again. So an example would be, let's say you get off a night shift early in the morning, you might only take a short nap, you know, post sleep. You won't go and sleep like a long period of time. You might just go and take a short nap. Then you wake up, you try to go about the rest of your day, and then you know, build it up until evening where you then go and sleep. And for, you know, some people that will mean also like in the morning you don't have a coffee after a night shift or anything of that nature. You just like keep it caffeine free and like I said, take a small that short nap and then go about the rest of your day. And then whatever you plan for that day also kind of matters to some degree, depending on what you might need to get done. So it really varies from person to person, but the general principle there is you're just trying to prepare your body to transition into reversing that circadian rhythm so that you can be awake at night, and then reversing it back to being able to sleep at night. It's a tough life, man. I sympathize for anybody that goes through night shifts and stuff, but it is what it is, you know. So you gotta manage it.
Right. So we've covered here and we spoke about the lack of sleep and how that is a bad thing, right?
Yep.
Is there also a flip side to that? Is there a case of too much sleep?
Oh, yeah. I think there is I'm not too familiar with the research on this to be honest, but usually in the sleep literature, in the stuff that I've read on lack of sleep, you know, the range that they find is like people sleeping up until like 9 hours or something. So that seems to be the recommended healthy range up until 9 hours. I'm not entirely sure what the science says about sleeping past that. But I think anecdotally and from my practical experience with people, uh, when people do have the luxury of sleeping longer than that, they end up usually just feeling more tired. You know, I'm not too sure why. I'm not sure what the science or the mechanisms behind it might be, but yeah, it seems like more than maybe like 9, 10 hours tends to not be very beneficial. Yeah, you don't get any additional benefit, and perhaps you might end up just feeling even more groggy and sleepy than usual.
It's true, because I'm guilty in that one. All right. So the last question that I have here is that we're talking about rest and recovery, we're talking about lack of sleep, all of that.
Yeah,
What is the difference physiologically between rest and sleep?
between rest and sleep
Yeah.
physiologically.
So like if I'm talking about recovery from the aspects that you gave,
That means rest and recharge, right?
Yeah. So if I have rest, right? If I'm just lying around reading a book, that kind of stuff,
Yep.
but not actually doing much physical activity, just focusing on actually resting versus the importance of actually getting shut eye, where I actually really go and sleep. In terms of recovery, how's the difference between the two?
Okay. I'm not too sure if like I'm confusing your definition of rest because when you say rest, you say like reading a book, but they're not actually sleeping.
Yeah.
That I would consider a recharge,
Yeah. Okay.
you know? So that's why we say R and R, like rest and recharge. Rest is sleep, period. That's it. So sleep is that thing that you do that gives your body the chance to recover itself, right? Because your metabolism drops down when you sleep. Basically, your body like goes in like that's why your computer has a sleep mode, where it saves energy, so to speak. Basically, that's like your body shutting down so that it can upregulate all the recovery things that it needs to do. Okay, so that's more a lot of like the physical repair stuff, washing out any of the waste products from the brain, things like that. So that's the rest part. That's why that is important. It's like maintenance of the physical hardware. The recharge part is where you are decompressing your mental side of things to help reduce the amount of stress. It's actually a fairly new phenomenon that people are constantly stressed out or that there's chronic stress just because even though we're not physically in danger for the most part of the day, we're just doing so many things on a mental level that our brains are being worked really, really hard, right? So there's all this perception of stress that kind of neurochemically translates into a physiological environment here. So we talk about that. Like, of course, the big stress hormone is like, cortisol, but you still have like your adrenaline, your noradrenaline, all these kind of hormones to worry about. But when you go and do something that's a recharging activity, like I mentioned, you go and do hobbies, you go and spend time with loved ones, you do things that are not sleep, but they are relaxing, they allow you to decompress a bit. These are the things that actually help rebalance the neurochemical scale, where you're pushed to one end where it's like, oh, just everything's just so uh what you call it, like frantic or caught up. Yeah. And this is why also just I think mental health is increasingly becoming a more hot topic, especially for a lot of office workers, a lot of people that are working in like high cognitive focus industries. And it's one of those things where, yeah, that's why we do need that recharge component. We are not computers, right? Even computers also overheat. So, you still have to cool it down, so to speak, right? You have to decompress things. That's really what the recharge component of things are. So, like when you mentioned just about rest and like, let's say not sleeping and reading a book, like reading a book would be considered a recharging thing versus resting where it's like pure the sleep, the hardware maintenance.
Okay. Fantastic. I think
Yeah.
that should sum up this module. And
Cool.
so then we'll be moving on to the next module, which is tracking progress on
Awesome.
this fitness journey.
Really
Look,
important module. So please make sure you watch that one and we'll see you in that one.
awesome. See you then.